Hey there. I want to speak about the full moon, which was exact yesterday, but it's of course such a significant marker in this bigger context of cycles which we find ourselves in, which is oh so very potent and so intense, as you might have noticed. Anyhow, yesterday we had actually a very beautiful Sagittarius full moon, and that was even more significant, but also beautiful or positive in many ways, because the ruler of the full moon, Jupiter, which rules the sign of Sagittarius, just moved into Cancer, where it's exalted. Jupiter naturally ruled Sagittarius and also Pisces, but it's said to be exalted in the sign of Cancer. Home, family, belonging, inner children, protection also, vulnerability, attachment, but also motherland and patriotism and nationalism connected to that. We see issues of that flaring up everywhere in the world, for good or ill, but also realizing that the ill, that the diseases that we find with these kinds of topics in the collective field are of course the ones that really push us to grow and expand our awareness of these fields of human emotional relating. That's the Cancer side. Cancer is all about feelings, emotions, belonging, family, roots, but also safety. Can get so very protective and defensive about that, about what is my identity in regards to the place that I belong, and where and how do I maybe get overly defensive about that. So whether that's in communities in LA that feel really invaded by the god-awful things that are happening with ICE, or also the other side that feels like their country, the stolen country, is invaded by outside forces, so now we gotta protect that. That's just the case, of course, in the US, and there's like so many more, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in the Middle East, whether it's in the twisted version that Israel is trying to tell the world and which our freaking leaders all support. Hard not to speak about these topics, right? And I want to say a few more words about that. But still focusing on the positives of Jupiter and Cancer for the moment, we are now entering a year where our awareness in regards to human relating and belonging and emotional safety with each other and with ourselves is about to expand big time. So in that case, and in that way, the full moon yesterday was a very beautiful initiation of that kind of energy. Very beautiful initiation of a new quest for deeper truth and true alignment with what is actually true. Where again, if we talked about like world politics, a lot of the things are not true, even though all the news stations will tell you that they are. And this, of course, asks and forces us, if we truly want to align truly with truth, to learn to develop our own discrimination, which is more of a Gemini, Virgo, and Mercury function, left brain, but also our intuition and being able to tell fiction from reality, truth from lies, deception from authentic beingness and true facts. We need both our mental discrimination and discriminatory power of Mercury and the rational, logical mind to figure out the facts and sift through, right? But also to develop our intuition and connection to spirit, which Jupiter and also the Sagittarius archetype talk about, so that we can perceive the energetics of something, of a story, of a new story, of an AI video, soon to flood our planet even more, or also everything else that we encounter in reality and in our own personal lives, and where and how things are also in alignment with our own personal truth. This brings in the shadow side of the Cancer archetype a bit, which we'll also deal with a lot. And I made a much longer video. There's a 30-minute long video on YouTube about this. Where and how we try to align with truth because of our own inner emotional congruency that makes us feel safe, which is maybe completely outdated and just based on the attachment to old identity and the attachment to old form and the not wanting to let go, right? Cancer can grab on a lot. See, I'm talking so much about Cancer, but this full moon was about Sagittarius. Sagittarius Gemini axis, right? where we gotta embrace and integrate the intuitive perception of reality and our alignment with something higher and beyond and truth and spirit into the day-to-day and how we communicate, how we speak, the words that we speak, and all the ways that words are being used to cast spells onto us and the world, in which words are misused and abused, and the magical power that they hold are being twisted and thwarted, and you know what I'm talking about. Anyhow, a big moment to really open up another portal on a deeper quest for truth and belonging, and the emotional, sensitive, inner, vulnerable side of ourselves that must develop a deeper sense of meaning, a deeper sense of purpose in our life quest, which, yes, will pull us out to the far-off horizons, right, Sagittarius, but wherever we go, there we are. And that is the Cancer part. Wherever we go, we carry our own inner woundedness, we carry our inner child, we carry our emotional needs, we carry our longing for belonging, we carry our emotions and our desire and need to emotionally connect and feel emotionally safe and contained. That's the two claws of Cancer that can create the sense of containment. There was a big fire trine, Jupiter, so much Jupiter. The full moon trining Mars and Aries, Mars and Leo, and Chiron in Aries. So all the three fire signs connecting in a beautiful way on the last degrees of their respective signs. Right, so a big flow of spirit, a big flow of energy, a big flow of things moving forward. In regards to Mars and Leo, where it's still about healing our sense of inner agency in regards to the courage to live from the heart, the courage to show our heart, the courage to follow our heart. And it sounds so cheesy, but it's also very hard to truly show ourselves and trust our own heart. And that brings in the Chiron side of learning to heal the wounds in regards to self-identity, the wounds, Chiron, that bring healing in regards to instinct and will and desire and drive and initiative and trusting that we must make new leaps forward, and that they often entail not knowing where the path will lead, but having to trust the instinct, having to trust that first spark of fire, the first spark of light. That's Aries. So beautiful there, energy there in the background. On the other hand, and this is much bigger part of not just this full moon constellation, but what we're living through right now, right? Jupiter is now in Cancer, which leaves the last of the slower moving planets, Uranus, to shift into Gemini in a month, on the 7th of July. Uranus and Saturn and Neptune, the outer planets, the slow planets, will all go back to Pisces and Taurus, respectively, for a last bit, a last hurrah over autumn and winter. But so much, also now with Jupiter changing signs, so much is moving forward. Jupiter takes 12 years, it's 1 year in each sign, and we like coming out of the mental overstimulation of Jupiter, the expansion that Jupiter brings in Gemini, the mind, communication, interaction on the mental plane. But soon we'll have Uranus activating that archetype in our collective field, implying that there's more of that fast-moving energy moving forward. What we have right now in a couple of days, though, is also that Mars, which I just mentioned, now slowly at the last degrees of Leo, where it was more or less, right, in Leo or in Cancer since October, late September last year, so since forever, because of Mars retrograde. Still that fire archetype in the field. And Mars is about to square Uranus exactly on the last degrees of Taurus, 28 to 28. And this will be on Sunday. On Sunday, we'll also have the last square of Jupiter in early Cancer, now 1 degree of Cancer, squaring Saturn on 1 degree of Aries. We already had 2 of these, and they appear like clockwork, very precise. Their cycle is 20 years long. So this opening square happens, right? We had the conjunction of the two, the great conjunction it's called, on December solstice 2020 on 0 degrees of Aquarius, and now they have their opening square. They're about to finish it, but this opening square is usually a time where global economic pressure really comes to a big crunch time. The other thing, of course, that I really want to invoke here is the mythology of Jupiter and Saturn as the new and the old and the new order, the son and the father, the new king on the Olympus and the old Titan, right? And then there's, in the background, there's also Mars squaring Uranus. And Uranus is, of course, the father, Uranus of Kronos or Saturn, who also Saturn took the male power out of Uranus, and with that birthed the new world, but birthed Aphrodite, birthed all the new gods. And then the cycle, but also the karma repeated with Saturn suffering a similar fate with his son, Jupiter, Zeus, who now sits on the throne of the Olympus and is the ruling godfather right now in a sense. But here we also have the clash of the old with the new, of the ingrained structures of reality, the power structures, the governments, the mental inner structures in every single one of us, clashing with the desire for new expansion, new growth, new possibilities, new openings of where and how we can find meaning in the world, Jupiter, and expand life force in a new way, expand spirit in its embodiment through us in a new way, but where the old structures, Saturn, have become too rigid, too controlling, too domineering, too top-down, and have to be toppled. So this often creates a lot of crunch time economically, whether that's on the big global markets, but also personally. It's often a time where we feel a lot of this societal pressure and an uncertainty about the stability that Saturn also offers. And it's interesting, of course, to notice that this exact square happens exactly on Sunday, when we also have that Mars squaring Uranus, which is very explosive and very dynamic and so much about fighting and the drama of Leo, right? And breaking free. Uranus has so much to do with breaking free, and Mars can bring the fire and the intensity and the heat and the aggression and the anger. So all the things that we see also, where and how the pent-up anger for the old systems and all the lies and deceptions that they also tell us, all the power grabs that they do. And I'm not thinking just about one specific party or government or president or whatever, if we want to talk with the US. So it's in every country, and it's every leader that we see on the world stage right now, right? Where and how the masses, the human awakening and the breaking free from old constraints, which Uranus also talks about, and Jupiter also reflects in a different way, where we maybe don't feel emotionally safe anymore, the Cancer archetype, in regards to what these greater powers do or what these greater powers have instigated. Bringing us to the last point of the karma that I just mentioned. Saturn is said to be in the fall in Aries, because Aries is the very first sign. Aries is about the new will and the new birth and the new light of the new year. It's the first spark of fire. It's the first spark of consciousness. It's the cosmic alpha, right? And Saturn and Neptune dancing on the edge of Pisces and Aries right now on the cosmic Omega and the cosmic Alpha. They're dancing back and forth, showing this dissolving of reality and the dissolving of our outer and inner structures, but also this absolute loss of meaning, loss of sense, loss of purpose, loss of clarity, of direction, of where and how is all of this moving forward? Where and how can the structures, Saturn, still contain any sense of deeper transcendence or longing or purpose that really connects us to a much deeper mythology, albeit mostly unconsciously so for the world, and where we see this huge new wave of something new that has to happen, but also the loss and the grief and the confusion of the old fading away, and us being in this very strong liminal space this year, with so much about new fire, new direction, new clarity, new power, but also the loss of old identities, the loss of old stories, the collapse of these old systems. And Saturn is said to be in fall in Aries because Saturn is the planet of time and the planet of karma. And we need linear time for karma to play itself out. But in Aries, there was not enough time yet. So we see so many atrocities happening in the world. And while they break my heart and make it also sometimes really hard to speak about the astrology because it feels so meaningless almost. Like, do you even care? Like, there's so big and grave things happening in the world. It's like, I'm struggling. I'm struggling with that. Emotionally, personally, and in the way of where and how do I find meaning and purpose in the things that I do, including recording videos like this and sharing them freely with you. How can I talk about expansion of joy and clarity of new directions and the freedom, Sagittarius, to express my true heart's desire when I see all the when I witness all the suffering in the world and all the ways in which these freedoms are undermined, not just very directly, very obviously in Gaza, for example, when how people in Sudan and Congo are suffering immensely and definitely don't have the freedom that you and I enjoy, but also for us in the so-called free world. And there's this beautiful, beautiful concept of the four freedoms, which I think was initially very strong. Roosevelt was a strong proponent of that. The four freedoms: the freedom of speech, the freedom of religious practices or religion, of belief, the freedom from want, and the freedom from fear. And in one way or another, none of these is present for us also in the Western, civilized, free, democratic world. Free speech is not a thing, not like the way we think it should be. Freedom from want or fear, when agents can just invade you, your home, or just take you out from a dinner party and put you somewhere. And this is not just happening in the US. It's happening in many different ways in many different places, especially since 2020, and this like over-strengthening of the old Saturnian power structures that just makes also us collectively still, there is this huge traumatization which is still in the field, which almost nobody addresses. There is no cleanup of that, and it still reverberates in such a strong level, in such a strong way, when most of humanity, at least for us in the Western world, where this was the biggest thing, right? I know also big parts of Asia, but many parts of Africa, for example, not. The awareness, at least in the back of our mind, that government can always come and do whatever they want, and my life can just be taken away, or everything that I build up can fall and disappear in a moment, right? So yeah, COVID brought so much awakening and so much rupturing and breaking out of the matrix for so many people. But for most others, it created this lingering sense of despair and also apathy in the back of their mind, which is also this Saturn-Neptune conjunction looming. So anyhow, I want to talk about freedom, but how can I when all of these things are going on? I want to talk about re-engaging and reactivating the inner freedom and the inner light of your soul to reconnect with higher truth, so you can tell truth from lies and be a light for others in the world. But then my heart is also so heavy with what is going on in the world, and it almost makes me deaf and dumb, and not want to speak out, and feel like there's so many more important things to say than explaining to you the astrology of it all. Still, I'm doing it now. I hope you listened until here. I'm grateful for every single one of you that did. I would love to hear how you're feeling about all of this. This is not a one-way street, of course, like you're seeing my face, but please, like, engage. Show me what is present for you. I would really love to hear, because these are such potent and intense times. And yeah, anyhow, this weekend is a big moment. Very volatile for us, but it is asking us to step more into our creative self and be conscious co-creators with reality, instead of feeling victimized by reality, which is very easy right now, but which is exactly what these kinds of forces want to do. The war is not just there or there or there. It's also through our media, through these tiny little screens that we're all looking at here, that we get so glued into, where the suffering that is created is meant to also disempower and make us feel victimized and powerless in regards to and in the face of these greater forces, which are not greater forces. They're very twisted human forces, and they will have to face the true greater forces of time and karma and the teaching function of reality, and none of us can escape that. Nothing we do goes unmarked in the book of karma, and sooner or later everything that is unfolding will fall back in one way or another to teach us all. And there we must have compassion, right? Even for the ones that perpetrate awful things, because they know not what they do. They know not that they're harming themselves, that we're all Jupiter and Cancer. We're all one big human family here. And as long as we don't feel that, we can feel threatened. We can become protective Cancer or aggressive Aries. strengthening our personal boundaries or our nation boundaries in ways that are not healthy and not reflecting the deeper truth of reality, that we are one human family, that we all belong to this earth, that nobody has a true right, more than another at least, to a certain part of land. We belong to the land, but the land does not belong to us. And stealing and evicting people from certain patches of land is against natural law, and this natural law will come also for those. Anyhow, I'm going to leave it here. This is long enough. Like I said, there's a longer video on just Jupiter and Cancer dynamics for the next year. You can watch that in my YouTube if you're not already watching this video on YouTube, but on Instagram. Apart from this, I'm also, of course, so glad and happy if you feel like subscribing to my channel. It would mean so much to me, and sending you much love, much strength, much grace, much clarity, and a deep alignment to truth, that it may bless you and guide your way. Bye.